India's official economic performance is currently measured at 8.2%. On paper, this establishes the country as the fastest-growing major economy in the world. However, in May 2026, Prime Minister Narendra Modi issued an urgent public appeal. He asked citizens to stop buying gold, cancel foreign travel, and reduce their consumption of cooking oil. This call for household rationing was framed as a patriotic necessity to preserve the country's dwindling foreign exchange reserves. A booming, top-tier economy and a government-mandated rationing of cooking oil are two realities that cannot occupy the same space for long. Alpesh Bhai moved to Surat to polish diamonds, eventually earning enough to enroll his daughters in a private English medium school. That trajectory broke when his factory slashed his wages and eventually fired him. His children are now back in the government school system. Government data from the informal sector reveals the scale of this displacement. During the same 3-month window in our reported high GDP growth, the informal manufacturing sector lost 2.7 million jobs. The 8.2% growth rate measures a formal economy that has become decoupled from the millions of informal workers who are losing their livelihoods. With millions of jobs vanishing, the continued high sales of cars and electronics appears to be an economic anomaly. Household debt in India has reached 41% of GDP. This surge is composed of high-interest retail loans and credit card EMIs used for daily appliances and personal consumption, rather than long-term assets like housing. Workers are using credit to bridge the gap between their costs and their income. When adjusted for inflation, the average salaried worker is actually earning less today than they did in 2012. Because private consumption accounts for 60% of India's GDP, the national economy is currently sustained by households taking on unsustainable levels of debt to maintain their basic standard of living. This fragile system was hit by 3 external shocks in rapid succession. First, the U.S. imposed heavy tariffs on Indian goods, specifically targeting export hubs like Surat's diamond industry and Tirupur's garment sector. Second, diplomatic shifts forced India to stop importing cheap Russian oil. The country was pushed to buy more expensive American and Venezuelan crude, which requires payment in U.S. dollars. Third, the outbreak of war in the Middle East led to the blockage of the Strait of Hormuz. Crude prices spiked instantly, and India's total oil imports dropped by 40%. These 3 shocks arrived precisely when Indian households had already exhausted their savings, leaving the economy with no domestic buffer to absorb the rising costs. While official figures placed inflation at under 4%, the price of a domestic LPG cylinder reached 2,500 rupees on the black market. For families earning 10,000 rupees a month, the effective inflation on basic energy is closer to 60%. The Indian Rupee fell to an all-time low of 96 against the dollar, as foreign investors withdrew 2.7 trillion rupees from the market in the first half of 2026 alone. This currency depreciation makes every vital import, from the fuel for transport to the fertilizers for agriculture, significantly more expensive. Export hubs are collapsing and layoffs are accelerating, yet the government has not initiated a large-scale fiscal intervention or bailout. National debt has exceeded 197 trillion rupees. India's debt-to-GDP ratio has reached 82%, far beyond the 40% threshold typically recommended for developing economies. The government's revenue is already committed. 25% goes to interest payments on old debt, with the remainder consumed by salaries, pensions, and existing subsidies. Over 80% of the budget is spent before any new crisis can be addressed. The state is financially paralyzed. The same borrowing that funded past growth has left it unable to respond to the current collapse. While industries struggle, taxpayer funds continue to be spent on high-profile foreign visits and extensive domestic television advertising. The previous target of a $5 trillion economy by 2025 has been abandoned. Political messaging has shifted toward a new deadline in 2047. A final threat is now arriving, a severe El Niño event. This weather pattern historically correlates with crop failure and spikes in rural unemployment. The household savings are gone, national debt has hit its limit, and agriculture faces a climate shock. The economic statistics are increasingly irrelevant to the reality on the ground.